Hi, this is Johnny with Good Burger Reviews, and we're here to do a special presentation tonight. It is the second quarter wrap-up. So in the first quarter, I watched and reviewed 13 movies. In the second quarter, it got quite much more busier. I ended up watching 24 movies in the second quarter. Now, I think the big difference was not only was there more releases coming out faster into the theater, but I also started reviewing Shudder, Netflix, and Max originals. Also was able to squeeze in Hulu, Tubi, and Prime Video releases as well. Overall, I do have 5 basic ratings that I give movies. At the highest, I have Cheeseburger in Paradise, then Good Burger, then Basic Burger, Veggie Burger, and then the lowest is Spam Burger. If you want to know more about how I break down those categories, you can check out my first video of the first quarter wrap up where I explain each category in more detail. I'll put a link in the description. And with no further ado, let's get into the second quarter wrap up. We will go in chronological order: April, May, and June. So the first movie I saw at the way beginning of April was Screamboat. This was a slasher starring David Howard Thornton. And the basic premise is Steamboat Willie, our beloved original Mickey Mouse character from Disney, is now hit public domain, and they made yet another slasher chasing teenagers and a mixed crowd on the Staten Island ferry. And this one was actually fairly surprising and came in at a good burger. In the very same week was released Hell of Summer, the Finn Wolfhard and Billy Burke slasher. This one was an ode basically to Friday the 13th and Scream, a camp slasher put in modern times. This one, however, was very disappointing and ended up getting a Spam Burger. Then next we had a Shudder exclusive released at the beginning of April, went straight to Shudder, Catherine Miller and Joey Falcone starring in 825 Forest Road. This is the one that I compared a lot to Oddity, a haunted house tale of people who move into this spooky town where lots of creepy things and old stories that date back 80 years happen. I ended up giving this one a basic burger. As we roll into the second week of April, Blumhouse dropped into theaters a thriller titled Drop. This one starring Megan Fahey. Basically, an exciting premise of a girl who goes out on a first blind date, and while she's on the blind date, she's getting targeted through her phone that her child is at home and in danger, and if she doesn't comply with killing her date, her son and babysitter's sister will be killed. This one was highly exciting, and I gave a Cheeseburger in Paradise. And that very same weekend, which dropped onto Shudder, was Shadow of God, starring Mark O'Brien and Sean Johnson. This was a fairly basic exorcism tale of a father and son who the father gets possessed by a demon, and the son has to go with a group of friends in a barn and perform an exorcism. This one was extremely basic, so basic that I ended up giving it a veggie burger because I was mixed about how terrible some of the CGI shots and special effects were in this one. And as we roll into the third week of April, Sinners hits theaters, directed by Ryan Coogler, starring Michael B. Jordan and Miles Caton. This one is a 1930s story of the Deep South, Mississippi. Michael B. Jordan plays two identical cousins who are opening up a juke joint, and on opening night they get visited by vampires. Sinners reached extreme success in the box office, and I ended up giving it a good burger. The very same weekend dropping onto Shudder was a Shudder original, Dead Mail, starring John Fleck and Thomas Boykin. This is the one where a serial killer is holding a guy hostage in his house, and he manages to drop an anonymous letter into the mailbox, and it gets to the post office and is marked as dead mail because they couldn't figure out the entire whereabouts of this letter. And the letter is being traced by the people in the post office to help rescue the guy trapped in the house by a crazy long legs type of serial killer. And this one ended up getting a veggie burger. As we cross into the last week of April, Until Dawn hits theaters. This movie was released by Sony and was a Sony PlayStation game. This was a haunted house, exciting thriller and scary movie featuring many creatures. Until Dawn had that Groundhog Day meets Happy Death Day premise where the characters are repeating the day over and over again. This one was like a campfire story, and I ended up giving it a good burger. As we roll into May, the first movie I watched was a streamer. This one was Field of Screams, and it was the plot line of a bunch of kids cleaning up the estate of a dead relative encounter scarecrows that came back to life through some sort of voodoo magic. And this one was kinda rough and ended up with a spam. As we reached the second week of May, Clown in a Cornfield was dropped into the movie theaters, and this one was a serial killer slasher movie with an 80s throwback style. Starring Kevin Durant, Frendo the Clown is in the cornfields stalking many teenagers who are known for being miscreants and misbehaving and creating lots of crazy YouTube videos. And Frendo the Clown ends up killing them off one by one in this 1980s slasher. This one ended up getting a good burger. Next we had another streamer. This one is called It Feeds, starring Ashley Greene, another haunted house movie starring a medium investigating a girl who seems to be possessed by an entity. This one was quite a surprise and ended up getting a good burger. As we cross into the middle of May, a highly anticipated Final Destination Bloodlines hits theaters. And this one starring Tony Todd and a whole new crew in this 50 years later version of Final Destination. This one was another one that was extremely popular, did well at the box office. I enjoyed this one very much. Tony Todd's presence in this movie was a tearjerker, and the Final Destination was true to its form with lots of fun, funny deaths, and extreme gory deaths as death chased down an entire family over a 50-year time period. And Final Destination Bloodlines ended up getting a cheeseburger in paradise. Next on the list was Lock. Now, I was a little late to this one, and though it was released in the first quarter, I did not get to review it until the second quarter. Starring Anthony Hopkins and Bill Skarsgård, this is a thriller involving an SUV where Anthony Hopkins locks Bill Skarsgård into an SUV for the majority of this exciting thriller. However, it wasn't that exciting because I ended up giving it a basic burger. Then to drop on Shudder was a Shudder original, The Surrender. This one was quite a surprise, starring Colby Minifie and Kate Burton. This one is a story of a mother and daughter who have to deal with the fact that their husband and dad passes away and they have trouble accepting it. So they end up doing a ritual to try and bring him back. But when the ritual goes extremely wrong and they get lost in another world, this one brings lots of disturbing and scary thrills. And for that, I ended up giving it a good burger. As we approach Memorial Day weekend, Netflix receives Prom Queen, Fear Street, straight to streaming. This was an extension or a spin-off of the Fear Street trilogy that was dropped onto Netflix in 2021. This was also basically a prom night meets Scream ripoff. It was a 1980s style slasher. However, this one ended up coming in as a basic burger. Next was another streamer that I did a review as a request for one of my subscribers, The Painted. This one was another haunted house throwback. A 1968 family is dealing with the estate of a family member, and when they go to the house to take care of the estate, they are tormented by ghosts and demons that come out of the paintings on the walls. This was another one that was a nice surprise, but still ended up getting a basic burger. Then, after Memorial Day, Bring Her Back hit theaters. This one, directed by the Philippou brothers and starring Sally Hawkins. Another disturbing movie where someone is grieving with a lost person in their family and makes attempts to bring them back. However, the twist on this one was she did it with her foster kids and another kidnapped kid. This one was highly disturbing and had some strange moments and ended up getting a veggie burger. As we cross into June, we start celebrating the 50th anniversary of Jaws and watching some shark movies. And right on Hulu was released Into the Deep, starring Richard Dreyfuss and Scout Compton Taylor. This was a shark movie where modern day pirates force tourists to dive into the ocean to look for sunken drugs, and they have to end up battling sharks in the process. This one was a fairly basic CGI shark movie and was a little bit disappointing, especially when the shark swam away from our main protagonist. And Into the Deep ended up with a veggie burger. As we hit the first week of June, into the theaters drops The Ritual, starring Al Pacino and Dan Stevens. This was another exorcism movie. However, this one was based on an exorcism that took place way back in 1928 and is the inspiration for the 1973 The Exorcist movie. This one was another one that I anticipated and enjoyed immensely, though many critics and other audience members found this one disappointing. I still ended up giving it a good burger. Coming out the same weekend, another shark movie, Dangerous Animals, starring Jai Courtney and Hassie Harrison. Jai plays a serial killer by the name of Tucker who kidnaps tourists and drops them into the ocean to be fed by sharks. This was in a Saw gory style due to the sharks taking somewhat of a backseat in this movie to our serial killer, Tucker. Dangerous Animals ended up getting a basic burger. Then, the following week later was another shark movie that had been released onto streaming. This one, Fear Below. A dive team recruited by 1940s mobsters to go to the bottom of the lake to recover sunken gold, but also have to battle a bull shark. This one was highly original and fun, and the best of the shark movies I saw in June of 2025, and ended up with a good burger. Then as we cross over the middle of June, 28 years later, the highly anticipated sequel was released. This starring Alfie Williams and Ray Fiennes. Another zombie or the infected apocalyptic movie. This one was highly dramatic, very divisive, and very intense. I ended up giving 28 years later a good burger. Then another streaming movie came called Gator Lake. Now this wasn't a shark movie, this one was starring a gator. Derek Russo stars as Bubba Coggins, a former convict out on parole trying to expunge his record, is offered a chance to do so by killing a gator that is tearing up a lake in Florida in 2003. This one, with lots of action and great music, still ended up bringing home a basic burger. Then as we hit the last week of June, Megan 2.0 is released into theaters, starring Violet McGraw and Allison Williams. Megan has returned, but something about Megan has changed. A doll that was once a serial killer has gone good and now is battling another AI robotic doll in this sequel to Megan. This one ended up getting a good burger. However, divisive among the critics and audiences. That's our second quarter wrap up. Thanks for joining me. I look forward to watching more movies as we plow through the third and fourth quarter. As we get into Halloween time, I'm expecting a lot of scary horror movies to come out. So please like, subscribe, tap that notification bell,